everyone. I'm here today with Chris Cope, the winner of the 2024 Spine. How are you? How are you today?
Yeah, feeling better. It's a week since I finished, and actually today is the first day I've really sort of, in the mind, sort of started recovering a little bit, feeling a bit back to myself, which is great to feel. So I'm happy, pleased to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. So, just to start us off, tell us a little bit about you and about how you found endurance running.
So I'm a GP in Nottingham, living with wife, two kids, and in 2018, GPs have an appraisal every year. And my brother, my younger brother, had done an Ironman before and always said, "Oh, I'm an Ironman, you're not," as brotherly banter. And I thought, for my GP appraisal, you'd usually say, well, you're going to have these clinical things that you want to achieve in the next year, but one of them can be psychosocial. And so I was like, right, I want to do an Ironman. And so I just set myself that target, and I've run a little bit on track as a youngster, but nothing previously for 10 years before that. So at 35, I just took up endurance sport, and it went really well. Ironman, I qualified for Kona in the first year at Wales. So I went to Kona the next year. I did a double Ironman, the Brutal in Snowdonia. Absolutely loved it. And I loved that kind of peacefulness of the mountains going up Snowdon. And so got bored of swimming pretty quickly, and so ultra running was the next natural step. And so I've just gradually progressed and picked away at a few events since then. And the spine is, yeah, always something that just you can't comprehend it, can you? That distance in one go. I just thought, one, obviously it's possible because people have done it, but could I ever do it? So, especially being type 1 diabetic, it just adds that little bit of extra um, amount of planning. I wouldn't say difficulty, because as long as you plan for it, you can do it. But it certainly adds that extra bit. So it was always in the back, and to have achieved that now, and to have finished, and to have won it, is just mind blowing a little bit.
So, you have done races like the Dragon's Back before, if I'm correct. So, how did that fare kind of differently to the Spine race?
It's a very, very different race, the Dragon's Back, being a stage race. You certainly the runners that are at the pointy end of the race have a lot more time to recover. Camp life is really quite a fun thing at the Dragon's Back, especially if the sun is shining. Lots of time to recover, eat, roll, stretch in between, and then you go again the next day. I unfortunately picked up a couple of bad injuries in the first 3 days, which slowed me down a lot in the second half. But the expert, I still finished it, made sure I slogged on, death marched through the Brecon Beacons, loved it. And actually, that gave me a little bit of a sample of the other side of the Dragon's Back, because some of these people are setting off at 6 a.m., going all day, getting in at 10 at night. Then they've got all their admin to do, get their sleeping kit ready, get some sleep, and then they're back up at 4 or 5 to be out again. I think in some people have said, which is harder, how do you compare them? And I think if you're at the pointy end, maybe the spine is harder because you haven't got that recovery that Dragon's Back gives you. But if you're at the slower end with the less recovery, the Dragon's Back, it is a tougher mountain trail that you're following. So, but they're both awesome events.
Amazing. So, tell me a little bit about your race. Setting off, how you find each section. Was there any section that you were quite looking forward to?
So definitely you break it into sections, because it is impossible to think 268 miles. It's just more than 10 marathons. It's just not over that terrain. It's just not possible. So yeah, breaking it into sections. So I had a crib sheet with all the different sections on, my predicted paces, what I had to do at each section, where I could pick up water. So I planned to the nth degree as much as I can. Of course, you're thinking on your feet because things always change during the race. Set off, it had set off from Edale, pretty much some blue skies when we were getting there, but they quickly disappeared. By the time we were on to Jacob's Ladder, John Shield and myself going up, it started raining. I remember John couldn't decide whether to put his rain jacket on or not. And every time he took it off, it was raining again within 3 minutes. I was like, John, just leave your rain jacket on, please. And it was just hooning it down at times. The the flagstones. It was like nothing I've ever known on Kinder Scout before, which I know that area fairly well. 2 years ago, when I was training up there for the Dragon's Back, it was a dust bowl. This time it was just a bog. People were dropping out of the sprint left, right, and centre, trying to push over the flagstones, which kept giving way, tripping into bogs. The wind, it all. I mean, ultimately, it's a challenge, isn't it? This is meant to be Britain's most brutal for a reason, and we don't go there for an easy walk in the sunshine. But it was another level again to kind of what I was expecting. I think you said, which bit did I enjoy the most? Um, Probably coming up to Studley Pike, my blood sugar dipped for the only time in the race. I had a bit of a low point there, and John was really good. Just come on, just push through it. Brilliant fella, and I did. And then as we were coming down past Studley Pike, I heard these voices going, "Come on, John! Come on, John!" And it was my little brother shouting out, just winding there, as only little brothers can do, winding me up, shouting on the opposition. And he was there. It was great seeing Sarah and Matt. Just absolutely, just lifts you, just lifts you. Um, and but that was only the start. That was Hebden Bridge. There was so much more after that, and they'd all got their high points and low points. A couple of low points.
So, you have mentioned that you're type 1 diabetes. What sort of planning did you have to kind of endure to enter this sort of race?
So the better you can control your diabetes longer term, the more stable your sugars are. So if you're having hypos, you tend to have more hypos. So the better you can keep your control, the better you will be during a race. So that's the key point. But then, of course, you've got to as you train as if you go into race as much as possible. But for the race, you're carb loading much more. So I tend to carb load by having very little 3 days before, and then the day before, and the day before that, I'm eating a lot of carbohydrate. And that's the protocol that I use to maximize. So I'm really struggling to keep my sugars down for those 2 days. So I often start the race just a little bit higher because you don't want too much insulin in your system when you start, because otherwise you might plummet a little bit, as I potentially did before Studley Pike. Um, and then once you've been running for a while, I mean, everyone's diabetes is different, but I find that you tend to reach this happy medium whereby you've got your background insulin on board, and I need very little extra insulin. So I will be eating 90 or 100 grams of carbohydrate every hour to keep the energy going in. Vital, because the moment you stop that, your muscles start eating themselves essentially, and you're going to hit the wall very quickly. And so I need very little insulin at that point. It was interesting because I've never really raced for more than 12 hours or 24 hours. 24 hours was my longest run before. And at 36 hours, suddenly my insulin needs started increasing, I guess because of the stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, etc. And so I was needing 3 times as much insulin as I did previously, even though I was eating the same, exercising the same. But I'm really lucky and fortunate to have this program that is on my phone that links my glucose sensor to my insulin pump. And so as my sugars go up, the the program on my phone called Android APS will help inject a little bit more insulin, just carefully, little increments at a time, just to keep bringing it down. And that's been a game changer because that is sensing my sugar every 5 minutes.
Mm.
Now, when you're on the trail and you've got something where you used to prick your finger, you don't want to stop. I mean, an hour every hour was becoming a pain. But to have that doing it every 5 minutes and almost doing it for you, life changing, truly life changing. And I couldn't have done it without that system.
Amazing. It's so inspirational because I know quite a few people who are just getting into ultra running who are diabetic themselves. And when you won, and they were reposting your pictures and being like, wow, look at this. This is amazing. Do you have anything to say to those, people who are diabetic, who are maybe a little bit apprehensive about getting into longer distances?
everyone is different, so don't necessarily copy exactly what you hear me say or somebody else say on forums. Listen to your body. What's your sugars? The CGMS, the continuous glucose monitoring we've got now around the world, allows us to see what's happening to our sugars and balance that with our insulin. I suppose my key points: always have enough sugar with you because you can have unexpected lows, and always make sure you're not starting a run with too much insulin on board, because if you've got too much insulin, your blood sugar will crash no matter who you are or what you're eating. So they're the crux bits of the diabetes. Just enjoy it, and don't worry too much about it, and build it up gradually. That's what I did, and I'm not advocating everyone should do 268 miles, but certainly to do what's healthy and what you enjoy is a wonderful thing, and it will help you control your diabetes.
So you managed to gain a 12-hour lead on second place, which was just absolutely amazing. Did you intend on kind of grabbing that much of a lead, or were you feeling, good in certain sections and you were able to pull forward?
So I thought at the start of the race, I thought myself and John Shield would be at the pointy end, which we were up to Hebden Bridge, and John was looking really good. I think he had some GI issues. I was able to set off from checkpoint one a little bit before him as he was sorting some stuff out, and actually, yeah, never saw him again. I was feeling good at that point. It's always a balance, isn't it? When you're feeling good, you want to put some distance down and get something under your belt, but you mustn't push it. And so I was just treading that fine line. I think I got it absolutely spot on. And of course, once James and once John and then I think the next four guys that moved up, it was almost a poison chalice being in second and third because something would happen to them. So, or without me really trying to force a gap, I got that gap because of people sadly dropping out, which is awful for them because they put so much effort into just being on the start line. I'm gutted for them to have dropped out before checkpoint two, but it did take a lot of pressure off me. And you saw me smiling probably round. And God, I can just enjoy it that little bit more without thinking I've got to hit all these targets that I've set myself. I just knew that I got that cushion, that buffer. I could keep everything under control. And there was definitely a time because my feet were good to start with, and I was running just at about the pace I planned. The time I got past Hawes and it was the feet were swollen, macerated, blistering. There was a probably a checkpoint and or stage and a half where I was just power hiking nearly the whole way because I was literally worried about the soles of my feet coming off and it being a game over situation. I managed to get running a little bit towards the end, sort of the Cheviets and things. I was running well again then as I got my feet tried out. But coming up to Bellingham was miserable through the bogs, absolutely miserable. Smiling, but a couple of expletives came out now and then when I went kind of knee deep into something unexpected. But yeah, managing the feet, I think this year was the biggest thing. And if it had been dry, I probably always have that what if. I know I could have been. I was planning to go a lot quicker,
Mm,
um, and it slowed. It's definitely slowed me down
mm.
a lot. But yeah, it'll always be a what if, and you only can race against terrain and challenges on that day in that year.
Well, you weren't that far behind the course record because every time I checked, they have the course record on the dots. And I was like, in comparison to, you know, the conditions that they had when they, completed it, I was like, you're doing exceptionally well in these sorts of conditions, especially as it's called the summer spine. I was like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's lovely now, but like
absolutely.
at that time.
Yeah, the last day over the Cheviot was glorious. Blue skies, views everywhere. It was stunning, absolutely stunning. It was still wet underfoot, but even in that just that 24 hours of blue sky, you could just feel the bog drying slightly in places. It wouldn't need much for to be a totally different race in 2 weeks,
Mm,
2 weeks time if it was run then. Um, but yeah, we did get some good blue skies. I mean, nearly being blown off Penny Ghent, the hail coming in sideways to me was quite special. So we did get the whole spectrum of what British summer can be.
So how did you handle sleep deprivation and kind of going through the night sections?
I think I was manic, wasn't I? There's kind of smile on my face. I was a little bit manic. Um, I had three sleeps. One, I tried at Middleton and I wasn't having any of it, so I got up 30 minutes later and cracked on. Um, I had a 5 minute sleep at the end, at the bottom of High Cup Nick, coming up into Duff, and I'd heard about these power naps that people have, and my mind was starting to just slow down. And you don't want to make nav mistakes because that gives all sorts of issues. And so I thought, right, I'm going to have 5 minutes. I just laid down in someone's drive at 3 a.m. and put my pack onto my 5 minutes, woke up, bing, the lights were back on, felt great. Um, I then got to Bellingham, where friend Kev Bowen was volunteering, and just just being there, I thought, right, I'm going to let my feet properly dry out, have an hour's sleep, and I did have an hour's sleep. My feet dried out really nicely, which allowed me to run over the Cheviots. But my word, my ankles were swollen and my legs were sore after an hour of sleep. And I think probably in hindsight, I would have had a few more 5 minute tips rather than go for an hour. And everyone's different, but I think that would work better for me in the future. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed my 5 minute power naps. They were brilliant. I had another one on top of coming up to the Cheviots, and the midges woke me up after 5 minutes, which was again pretty much perfect. Kept me going again.
Nature's
It was
alarm, just things biting your face.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, what was it? About an hour and 10 minutes in 79 hours I had, and then when I got finished, all my body wanted to do was sleep. So my dad and his cousin picked me up. Lance gave me a pork pie, stuck it in my face in the front seat of his car. Woke up 2.5 hours later, it was still in my mouth, and I thought I'd been asleep for 5 minutes. I was like, no, it's 2.5 hours. We're back in Newcastle. I fell asleep on his lounge 5 minutes later on the floor. So like I say, it's taken a week for me to actually feel like my brain is functioning. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those kind of like last moments coming into the final checkpoint at Kirkjothelm and then, you know, into the finish line. What were you feeling like?
So I think it was an interesting finale after checkpoint five. I On the Dragon's Back, I'd been leading after day four. I'd won the first 3 days, and I'd almost allowed myself to believe I can win this, I can win this. And then for the injuries to take their toll, that was really hard to take. And I learned from that you just cannot expect anything in these length of events. It's not like a marathon where at 23 miles or you can't predict it. So at no point until checkpoint five could I let myself believe I'm in with a shout here. No matter what the lead was, because you can still get injured. So actually, that, as you say, going over the Cheviots was the point where I started to believe I can do this. I can do this. So the joy of that, to finish the spine is one thing, to win it is just wonderful. So I started to believe at that point, and the sun came out. Um, there are a nice range of mountains achieving it. I've never been there before, but they do roll up and down really nicely. You could keep moving really well on them. Hut A and Hut B, the guys there were brilliant, just shouting you on, made me a coffee at the second hut. And then yeah, just roll down. And you get to the bottom past the farm, and then you hit the tarmac road, and you've still got, is it 2.5 kilometers left? And I knew there was a hill coming up. Somebody had said there is a hill. I thought, how bad can it be after what we've done? This tarmac hill just starts off like that, then it goes a bit flat, and then it just goes, and you feel like it is vertical at that point, and it's quite something. It's not that long. It's nothing compared to what you've done, but you need to be aware that it's coming at you. And as soon as you're over the top, you're rolling down. Then you see the arch, the border hotel through the houses, and just that joy and elation. Everyone then is kind of, you see them on the finish cam, they're sprinting in. The amount of adrenaline that's carrying you over the line is fabulous, and the support there, the crew, A1. Yeah, I can't thank them enough. Yeah, and see my dad and his cousin there was super, absolutely super. Recommend everybody try to get a feeling like that sometime in their life because, oh, unforgettable, unforgettable.
So what's the feedback been from like your children or your wife? Are they were they on board for the whole thing, or are they kind of like, what are you doing, Dad?
I guess because I've gradually built it up over the last 5 or 6 years, they're they're thoroughly on board. They do get a bit, oh my God, he's doing something again a little bit because they know it does, and they have to support me doing it. It takes a lot of mental energy, preparation, doing it. Um, and and if it goes well, I'm on cloud nine. And if it doesn't go well, well, they know I'm going to do it again. Um, so but they're massively supportive. Couldn't do it without them. Both my kids are hugely into their sports, triathlon, swimming, running. Caleb, 15-year-old, he's doing 10Ks, 35 minutes. So I'm
Wow.
a very proud dad. And I'll support them, you know, to the nth degree and above and beyond what I do for myself now because they've given me so much. There was one particular point where I think somebody wrote on Facebook, you just exude positivity or something like that. And my daughter immediately on the family WhatsApp group said, "Nah, she needs to live with him. Not always." And she's right. You can't. You do need, and they do pick me up. My family, they're great. Really supportive.
I'm sure we'll see your son when he turns 18. You'll be back on the spine with him, just on the other side this
He's
time.
already said, "Well, I'm going to beat 78, 79 hours. That's for sure, Dad." Give, give it a while, Caleb. Build up to it.
So you've mentioned some, but what were some of your weakest moments, and how did you overcome them?
Um, So probably the worst bit was going past Hornisted Farm, which is a legendary pit stop before checkpoint 5. I saw Helen with the horses there. I really wanted to stop. I was in a bit of a dark place. It was getting darker. It was just raining, drizzling. We'd been through a huge old forest plantation which had been blown down a few years ago in the storm, and it was just bog, kind of deep water going through. Got to Hornshead, she's got beds and lemon drizzle cake and things, and you think could really stop there, but I needed to push on to Bellingham because that's where my foot care kit was. That was a low point, having to get back out, knowing you've got another 10K of bog to get there. And it's just a finish. I can only say it was just I've got to get finished, got to get finished. That was pushing me on to do that. So everything, once you're that close, everything is about just making sure you get to the end. Part of me was thinking, do I just stop and do what I can with my feet? But I got not enough stuff to do what I needed. And really, they just needed an hour and a half to dry out as well. And the best place for that was Bellingham. And that was the lowest point. But then the sun comes up, everything's good again, and it is. The guys doing the winter spotting, I think in some ways there are certainly aspects when it's frozen and the floor ground can be a lot easier. But they're doing it all in so much in the dark. I don't really know how that's possible, but maybe I'll find out one day.
Yeah. So, what were some of your aspects that you feel like went really well? Maybe your kit, your nutrition, that those sorts. How did that fare?
Yeah, kit was great, and my pack I packed as light as I possibly could, um, and I think it was only about 2.5 kilos my pack and that was with good kit, and sort of a proper downy jacket, which I did end up using, good rain jacket, uh, 2.5 kilos plus whatever fluid you carry. And there's enough places down there to not actually have to carry much fluid. You're meant to carry a capacity of 3 litres, but you don't actually have to have that. And 3 litres, 3 kilos, it's a lot of weight to carry. So I made sure I was kind of optimizing weight all the time. So really happy with the pack. The nutrition. So I make sure I have 100 grams of carbohydrate an hour. When you're going quickly, you want it as gel. So I make up these bottles of gel, which I would have another bottle at each checkpoint to swap over. And when you're going quickly, stick it in, and that's a really easy way of getting the energy in. Once I started to slow down, I wasn't really as keen on the gel, and I was looking forward to the protein bars and the cereal bars, nuts and things that I'd got. And by the time I got to the last quarter, the gel would make me feel properly sick. So that just went out of the window. Um, and I was craving things like pork pies from the honesty boxes, and just any good, solid, dirty food which would make you feel better. And it worked, all worked. Um, the positive feedback that we're getting from people. So James Thurlow, who was running the open tracking for the dog watchers, he saw me at Alston, and I'd really been looking forward to the lasagna and a shower at Alston. Cracking shower, quick shower, 5 plates of lasagna. It was awesome. I thought nothing's going to top this. And then James came up and said, Chris, you can't believe the response you're getting around the world on diabetic forums for leading this race, and the inspiration you give in parents of kids who are worried won't be able to achieve their goals, and kids are now saying, I can do. And God, that choked me to know that was happening. So how can you possibly stop putting one foot in front of another when you've heard that? So that was the biggest lift during the whole thing for sure. So thank you to James for passing that on.
So how's your recovery been? You've basically just been sleeping the whole time, I take it.
Quite a lot. Yeah, we had my brother and sister-in-law, Matt and Sarah, just got back from cycling around the world 2 weeks ago. We're a fairly active family, and so we had the weekends with them. We had a couple of bike rides where I was just very lightly spinning the legs, and that helped push out some of the fluid because my feet were the size of melons. And so I don't know, I had 3 big wheeze during the ride because literally I just got rid of all that fluid within my legs. And actually, the legs have been much better following that. And I did my first run this morning. I went out for 5 miles, felt really good. The legs are good. The feet are still sore, and there's bits of flappy skin on them which you probably don't want to hear about. But but yeah, it's coming on well. Thank you.
Amazing. So what are you hoping to complete next? What do you have in the pipeline?
Absolutely nothing. I have got totally nothing in the pipeline, and I think that's a really good thing because I think you can get obsessed on what's next, what's next, what's next, and actually taking some time back, spend time looking after yourself, looking after those around you is really important. What would I like to do? I guess there's all the Ultra Tour Mont Blanc is a really iconic race, Tour de Giants. There's lots of awesome European events which I would be interested in. Um, the the Barclay Marathons, if I could somehow get to do that, like one of my friends Kev Bowen did, and we've seen Jasmine Paris ripping it up, which just to try and have a go at that, improve my navigation skills, give that a go would be awesome one day. Um, but I've got actually I do have I've got an England vest for the marathon at Chester, kind of just as it's a fairly low key thing, but in October. So I've got to keep ticking over because I've got to be able to pick it up for a marathon again later in the year. Not a bad base. It's not a bad base.
So, final question. Was your brother happy with the fact that you are now kind of as cool as him now that you're the spine winner and he's an Iron Man?
He was delighted throughout it. The look on his face throughout has been absolutely super. We've got a really good strong relationship. I don't know what will he do next. He'll probably be cycling to the moon or back or something to try and outdo me next. But he'll be doing something. Yeah, and I think that having that friendly rivalry and spurring on is a lovely thing.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for taking some time to speak with me. Good luck with your recovery. and I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Harry.